All right, so it was announced earlier today that Lil Dicky, quote unquote, by the end of the summer, is going to be releasing an entire album of all of the songs that we've come to know and love that were created just for his TV show, Dave.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Why is that, Steve?
Because his second album has been, by the end of this year for nearly a decade now. That's still not like the Dave soundtrack, by the way. That's a whole separate thing. His second studio album. That's not what this is. And so the fact that we don't have like a set in stone release date worries me, because the man is a perfectionist and he keeps making changes and he keeps delaying his releases and his projects and everything. And hopefully the show has made him more disciplined, but I will be happy when I get the streaming link.
I think I've only seen 2 episodes of Dave ever. The one with the milking table, and is it the same one as where Macklemore walks out on the stage, and that's the same episode or different episodes?
That's a different episode.
All right, yeah, that one slays me.
Well, the show is great. I'll just be completely straight up with you. You should watch it from beginning to end. It's not just stupid dick jokes the entire time. It gets really, really deep a lot, which is good. It's like one of those shows that you watch it and you go, this is perfect for FX.
It really is. This soundtrack is something that I've wanted since the show started. So don't get me wrong. I'll be very excited if and when this comes to pass. But I've been burned far too many times as a dickhead.
And, speaking of setting your dick on fire, are you guys ready to get started?
Yeah.
Questionably, yes.
All right, hit that intro.
Oh my god, it's a face! Oh!
Two friends named Corey and Steve like talking about films and TV. They thought, hey, what if this was a show? That's how we got here, now you know. Wait, what's the name? That sounds terrible, go on. That sounds terrible, go on. We hope you stick around and have some fun right after our intro song. That sounds terrible, go on. Welcome back, folks, to another fantastic episode of That Sounds Terrible, Go On. I am your host, Corey.
And I am your co-host, Steve.
Steve, why are you talking in that manner?
Because I thought it would be fun to do a Nicolas Cage impression, and then I remembered I don't know how to do one.
Well, you know who might know how to do a Nicolas Cage impression?
John Travolta.
That, and our friend, our guest, Paul. Paul, welcome to the pod.
Hey, guys.
Oh, hey, welcome. Do it. We're putting you on the spot. Go, Cage.
Shit, I can't. You're putting me too on the spot. I can't think of a line right now.
Ha, we got him, Corey.
That's what happens when you forget about the Declaration of Independence. But speaking of all these references, folks, today we are talking about a classic action film, a film directed by John Woo, starring John Travolta, and of course, the amazing Nicolas Cage. We're talking about 1997's Face Off, folks.
What a treat, I'll tell you. This was a wild ride. It was the first time viewing for myself, not for these other two jamokes here. It was certainly a lot of movie.
It is certainly a wild ride. I haven't seen it in about 15 years and found myself laughing watching John Travolta impersonate Nicolas Cage. That man deserves an Oscar for that performance. I ate it right up.
Like, speaking of deserving an Oscar for that performance, guys, don't I know you?
Don't you?
Let's find out.
Let's.
All right, folks, today we have our guest, as is usually tradition, with the questions. So, Paul, I've been told that you've got 3 questions here to ask us today, so whenever you're ready, hit it.
I was told that you guys already do this, or have done this in previous podcast episodes. You had to replace one actor or character in a movie, or just a particular scene with Nicolas Cage. What movie and or scene would it?
It's a bonus untitled Nicolas Cage segment.
Yeah, it's as played by Nicolas Cage, of course.
Untitled Nicolas Cage segment.
I think I would have to choose the first Back to the Future, And I would replace current day Nicolas Cage with Doc Brown. If we want someone off the walls insane, and that's where we really want to take that film, and I think it would still work if Doc Brown wasn't just kooky, he was just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That's my choice. Steve, what about you?
Okay, I'm swinging for the fences here. I'm going to replace one bonkers performance with another. I'm going Apocalypse Now, and I'm replacing Marlon Brando with young Nicolas Cage. Can still shave his head. Just let that man go wild talking about the horror and nonsense and tribal stuff, whatever. I'd watch that.
Guys, I went in a very different direction than the both of you with this. I went with replacing Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan in the final scene of Revenge of the Sith.
Just the final scene.
Just that
Okay.
scene.
Okay.
You don't need anything else. Just that ending scene, just that whole dialogue. Starting from them getting off the ship to "You were my brother."
Your new empire? Nope, still can't do it. A lot of impressions, but not that one.
You know what? Still better than Attack of the Clones.
Hey, got him.
Question 2. What's your favorite Nicolas Cage movie?
I'm actually going to go with Con Air. It was the first Nicolas Cage film that I watched in my teenage years that I just absolutely fell in love with. Again, because of how utterly ridiculous the whole plot is. But it's a fun time. I can't not watch that film if I ever see that on any television screen. So if anybody ever wants to like easily capture me, just throw it on a television screen and wait for me to walk past you. Steve, what you got?
Well, this is one that I've seen slightly more recently, and not what I'd expect to be answering this question with. However, the greatest Nicolas Cage movie, and also the greatest Nicolas Cage performance, is the movie Kick-Ass, where he plays hardened cop turned vigilante Big Daddy. He is kind of a Batman-dressed character, has a very weird affectation on his voice that he doesn't do in anything else. He's training his very, very young daughter to be a superhero with him. There's an amazing scene right at the top of the movie where he has a bulletproof vest on her and then just shoots her point blank, just to show her what it's like. He's got some incredible deliveries. It's astounding how great it is. It's fun, it's goofy, but it's also kind of like sincere and heartbreaking at the same time, and there's a lot of layers going on there. Long answer. But Nicolas Cage as Big Daddy in the movie Kick-Ass.
Mine? Gonna go with Lord of War. Just a out of the park, good, serious Nicolas Cage role.
Solid.
Right on. Question 3. All right, let's go.
If you could cast him in any role he hasn't been in yet or that hasn't been created yet, where would you cast him? What do you want to see him, Nicolas Cage, do?
I think I would like to see Nicolas Cage play either 2 Batman villains, the Riddler or Mad Hatter. I think he could kill either of those.
My answer is actually also a Batman villain. It's a crying shame that he hasn't played Two-Face. The get up, the attitude, the
mood swings.
The mood swings, all of it. I mean, who better to pull off a split suit than Nicolas Cage?
See, you're both going with comic book villains here, which is, it's a lot of what we do here on the show. It's understandable. I'm just gonna, try to switch it up a little bit and say that I would like to see Nicolas Cage as Galactus. Giant Nicolas Cage eating planets. When he does deadpan real well. I want him to not give a shit about the planets that he's eating. The man's just hungry. And then, the Avengers come and try to foil his plans, or the Fantastic Four, or whomever. Get just some fun little Nicolas Cage outbursts that can be cosmic level. Bring it on.
You know what? I'm changing my answer. I want to see Nicolas Cage as the Teletubbies' son.
Oh, God, Nightmare Factory.
with just that face he makes, just his wide-eyed teeth face as the son in Teletubbies the entire time.
Scar an entire generation.
God, someone's gonna make porn out of that.
And now I know you.
And I know you. All right, folks, that's gonna wrap up Don't I Know You, and moving on to alternative titles.
Nip, tuck, and roll.
Shazam 2.
Peaches for you, peaches for me.
God, I had one, and that literally made me forget it. Son of a bitch.
Alternative titles.
You notice how this is like the one segment that only has one title?
All right, folks, that's going to wrap up alternative titles. Now, before we get to any other segments, a quick commercial break. Stay right there. All right, folks, I am here at Goblin's Den Tattoo out in the lovely Syracuse, New York, being currently inked by Leah, owner, operator, and a fantastic individual. Leah, how are you doing today?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
Doing really good, doing good. Am I doing good? Am I sitting good?
Yes.
Excellent, fantastic.
We're both hydrated.
That's the dream. Let's be honest here. So how long have you been tattooing for?
I have been tattooing for technically 5 years.
So tell me, what are your favorite tattoos to both design and put on people's bodies?
I think the biggest thing for me is for someone to be really inspired with their idea, really excited. That's always a plus, and not just like a last second kind of deal. Something that you can think about and be like, yep, this is how we're going to do it, critique it, special, all that jazz. But personally, when it comes to style, my drawing style is preferred anime, but I do like cartoons, I do like spooky, scary stuff. I like plants and stuff. A lot of people come to me for floral. Yeah, so I like more animated stuff that can be stylized. Kind of neo-traditional, but not so out there.
Well, you heard it here, folks. If you're looking for any of those kinds of styles or designs, you know exactly where you need to hit up. That is Goblin's Den Tattoo out in Syracuse, New York. What's the Instagram name?
Instagram name is Goblin's Den Tattoo. Same for Facebook. We're currently adjusting our social medias and getting them more active. So Instagram, Goblin's Den Tattoo. Facebook, Goblin's Den Tattoo. And my name is Leah Tran, if you're trying to look for me personally. We also have another artist, Sid, and Sid is also on there as well.
And folks, the Goblin's Den Tattoo is also a safe place for those of you who are LGBTQ+. So if you're looking for a shop that's both safe and not run by pieces of human garbage, then we can give you the guarantee that the Goblin's Den is the destination. Again, that's the Goblin's Den. Find them on Instagram or Facebook and book your next session today. Welcome back, folks.
How do?
Well, that face certainly do it for me, Steve, especially when I stare at you, and that's why we're about to get into our casted crew!
Oh, it's the cast and crew!
That's right, folks. Cast and crew is the part of the pod where we talk about some cast members, talk about some crew members. Now, are we going to get to everybody?
Oh, yes. Every single person that has a face.
Steve, quick question, like both dead and alive?
As long as they still got a face.
That is, nope, can't do that. We don't have the time available to us. But, folks, if there is someone a part of this cast and crew that we don't touch on that you think we should have, be sure to hit us up on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube.
Wish you would have told me that before I started digging, jerk.
Well, I got something else that you can dig here, and maybe Paul will dig as well. We've got our director of 1997's Face Off, John Woo. Now, Woo is best known as the director of 2000's Mission Impossible 2 and 2002's Wind Talkers, and he was a pioneer of the gun fu film genre out in Hong Kong. He has been nominated for 12 Hong Kong Film Awards, winning 4, and 2 Jupiter Awards for this film, winning both. So let's get into this direction here. When you think of a John Woo film,
It's this.
literally this is his magnum opus. Let's just call it what it is. There's nothing deep here. This is just pure ridiculousness that you believe just enough to where you're not really thinking hard about it. And there are so many guns.
There is one particular scene where even if I didn't know John Woo directed it, post scene, I would be like, oh, this is a John Woo movie. And it is that mirror scene with that camera pan and them on either side of the mirror. So classic of John Woo.
I specifically super enjoyed that scene. It was over the top. It was insane. It was wonderful.
It was slow motion.
Yes, and this is only the second John Woo movie I've ever seen. The other one is Mission Impossible 2, of course. And I've come to the conclusion that John Woo was the Zack Snyder of the 90s. Lots and lots of style, simple plot, just anything he can do to get a cool movie moment, he does.
And we love him here for it. Let's just be honest. Like, when you look at this script and you hear the premise, John Woo is the only choice, if you ask me. I can't think of anyone else around this time or anyone ever who would have been a better choice. Like, who are they going to get? The guy who directed Charlie's Angels? Please no.
Yeah. I mean, only other one I can think of that would come close would be Michael Bay, and there would be a lot more shitty, crude humor in it. Really, when we say that, what we're saying is that both Michael Bay and Zack Snyder have been trying to imitate John Woo this entire time.
But guys, let's transform this conversation to the co-writers. First off, we have Mike Werb. Werb is best known as the screenplay writer for 1994's The Mask and for co-writing the story for both 2006's Curious George and 2001's Lara Croft Tomb Raider. He is also the co-recipient of a Saturn Award for writing this film with this man, Michael Colleary. Colleary? Don't know, don't care, because Colleary is best known for co-writing the story for 2001's Lara Croft Tomb Raider, and as said before, a co-recipient of a Saturn Award for writing this film. We've said it before, and we'll say it again. The 90s was a lawless wasteland, and this film is another proving point for that. Everything in this film just leads up to the switching of the faces. That's really the whole idea here. It is crucial that we reach this, but the writing is strong because while we do reach that moment, they made sure to put enough detail into the world that we're residing in to the point where, unless you're really thinking about this is plausible.
Yeah, as long as you shut your brain off, it makes perfect sense. They very clearly just had the idea that we want Nicolas Cage and John Travolta to play each other. So let's come up with anything that'll get that to happen. And this, yeah, Corey's right. When you do actually think about this is ridiculous. This is a plan to obtain one singular piece of information. Probably could have gotten other ways. And the extreme measures that they have to put this person through in order to do it. It is 10 different kinds of absurd, and I'm so excited to get into it. Very silly script.
When you hear that this is how far they're willing to go, waterboarding just makes sense.
I recently, before rewatching this movie for the first time in a long time, tried to explain the plot of this movie to a friend of mine, and failed terribly, because unless you've just watched it, trying to get that plot right off the top of your head out of nowhere, a little challenging.
It definitely is, and there's a lot of payoff in this film that I also felt was challenging. There are times where they try to make it too serious. There's a lot of the film where they walk that fine line of serious and absolute ridiculousness without going way too far away from the other. But there are a few scenes where they just get way too serious, and it kind of pulled me out of it a little bit. But outside of that, the idea is definitely original and fresh. The technology was thankfully there at the time for them to pull this off, because they didn't really use CGI at all in this film.
Yeah, to me, what really stood out was the staggering amount of yada yada technobabble they got to explain how this procedure works. They try to make sure you know a lot of details about it, but make it sound like something you don't understand so that you let them get away with it. But there's some very silly stuff going on there medically.
The mold of John Travolta's face in the water just got me real good. It was one of the most 90s things about this movie. It was just the face mold in the water for me.
Moving on, though, folks, we got to talk about our stars, starting with John Travolta as Sean Archer. Now, Travolta is best known as Danny Zuko in 1978's Grease. Turl in 2000's Battlefield Earth, Tony Manero in 1977's Saturday Night Fever, James Uberacchio. I am definitely butchering that, but I am butchering it because he was in the Look Who's Talking franchise. Chili Palmer in 1995's Get Shorty, as well as its 2006 sequel, Be Cool. Edna Turnblad in 2007's Hairspray. Vinnie Barbarino in the Welcome Back Kotter TV series, and Vincent Vega in 1994's Pulp Fiction. He's also been nominated for 2 Academy Awards, 1 BAFTA, 7 Golden Globes, winning 1, 3 Primetime Emmy Awards, winning 1, 3 SAG Awards, 17 Golden Razzies, winning 6, and 1 Grammy Award. Not to mention, in 1985, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I'm pretty sure he's been nominated for more Razzies than anybody else in history, but when it comes to this film, he killed it. He got the mannerisms of Cage and his character down perfect.
He understood the assignment, credit where it's due. He delivers as Cage. You believe that is Nicolas Cage trapped in a different body. Absolutely solid, 100%. I honestly expected him to kind of be the weaker performance in this movie. I'll be honest, given that he's John Travolta. He either tries to be a Danny Zuko type or go way over the top, and he made it work here.
I personally don't know what was more impressive of acting, John Travolta impersonating Nicolas Cage or Nicolas Cage trying to impersonate a normal human being, just slowly descending or ascending into madness at different parts of the movie. But I'm going to have to go with Travolta there.
Yeah, he brought it. Did some solid villaining.
Next up, we've got Nicolas Cage. Hold on. We need 2 choirs for Nicolas Cage, am I right?
I'll allow it.
As Castor Troy. Now, Cage is best known as Charlie Bodell in 1986's Peggy Sue Got Married, Roy Waller in 2003's Matchstick Men, Stanley Goodspeed in 1996's The Rock, H.I. McDonough in 1987's Raising Arizona, Memphis Reigns in 2000's Gone in 60 Seconds, Joe Enders in 2002's Wind Talkers, Ronnie Camilleri in 1987's Moonstruck, Benjamin Gates in the National Treasure franchise, Peter Lowe in 1988's Vampire's Kiss, Edward Malice in 2006's The Wicker Man remake, Johnny Blaze in the Ghost Rider franchise, Cameron Poe in 1997's Con Air, Big Daddy in 2010's Kick-Ass, Spider-Man Noir in 2018's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Ben Sanderson in 1996's Leaving Las Vegas, and as himself in 2022's The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. He has been nominated for 2 Academy Awards, winning 1, 2 BAFTAs, 4 Golden Globes, winning 1, 3 SAG Awards, winning 1, 10 Golden Razzies, and in 1988, he obtained a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He still doesn't have as many Razzies as John Travolta does, but man, this dude is all over the spectrum when it comes to acting. Holy crap.
I'll say for me, the only thing in this movie more entertaining than John Travolta pretending to be Nicolas Cage is Nicolas Cage as himself. He completely unleashes in these first opening scenes where he gets to just be this maniacal, insane terrorist guy. And I'll be honest, I was immediately rooting for him just because he was so fun. He was doing terrible things, and I didn't even care because he was just like such a goofball. He's just a silly little goose, dancing around in his priest costume, getting all the ladies to smooch on him. He's just having a whole bunch of fun, and I'm having fun with him.
And again, with the outfit and all the gold right before he got on the plane. The gold scarab beetle cufflinks and the alligator money holder, the double gold guns, just all of it. So over the top, but so necessary.
I feel like for a role like this, if it's not over the top, it wasn't going to work. You couldn't have someone this crazy be subtle in this type of film. This film, like I said, knows that it's ridiculous, and thankfully the actors knew that it was ridiculous as well. All right, folks, and that's going to wrap up Cast and Crew.
Oh, it's the Cast and Crew.
Next up, the generically named How It's Made.
hey, how'd they make that?
As always, folks, with the generically named How It's Made, I have gone through, I have compiled the best production history that I humanly possibly can through hours and hours of research on the internet. I've taken all of that research, I've compiled it into a document that Steve is opening right now as we speak. He has not seen this document before, so he is going to read it out loud for us, giving his takes in real time. So, Steve, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Yeah, all right, cool. After graduating UCLA in 1990, writers Mike Werb and Michael Cleary decided to write Face Off as a way to pay off their student loans. Man, I was doing that wrong. Being influenced by 1949's White Heat, they wanted to write a film set in a prison, with the idea being someone going undercover in prison and a huge riot breaks out. That does happen at some point. Cool. In 1991, they would option a spec script to Joel Silver and Warner Brothers for an 18-month period and a payout of $125,000. That's $1991 we're talking there. That ain't bad. Warner Brothers would say that they planned on announcing the film on January 16th, 1991, after Werb and Cleary brought up how that was the day that President George Bush announced he would start the war that would become Desert Storm. They were assured no one in Hollywood's going to care about that. When January came and went, they chased down the announcement, only to be told, "Are you kidding me? We're at war!" Oh, those silly Warners. Always pulling a fast one on you. The option would expire in 1994, where the project was purchased by Paramount. Webb and Cleary believe their film was shelved in favor of 1993's Demolition Man, as the studio execs thought the plots to be too similar. To be honest, I've never seen Demolition Man, but I'm pretty sure that is a science fiction future dystopia movie where people poop into shells. I'm not seeing a lot of overlap. Rob Cohen was first signed on to direct the film, but when the project was still in limbo, he would leave to direct 1996's Dragonheart. In 1996, John Woo would then sign on as director. Johnny Depp had expressed interest in signing on until he found out that it wasn't about hockey, and then passed. I feel like there needs to be context there. There's a piece of that story I'm missing.
The title of the film is Face Off.
Yeah? Why specifically hockey, though?
So in hockey, a face-off is what happens when they drop the puck in the middle of the rink and two people like fight for the puck.
Don't other sports have that?
It's not called a face-off, though.
No, I think just hockey is the face off.
That's still, there's other things in this world that are called face-offs. It's just odd that that's what he immediately thought it was. And that he wanted to be in a hockey movie.
I don't know. I kind of like the idea of a 1997 John Woo film about a hockey team that just shoots people.
I'd watch it.
We probably only get 5 minutes into the hockey game, though, given how much slow-mo he uses. Oh, got him! Woo then pushed to cast Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. I would have thought this whole movie was built around those two first, and then everything else came into place. Odd. Filming would take place in the Los Angeles area. Cage and Travolta would spend 2 weeks together before filming took place to learn how to play each other, along with deciding on specific gestures and speech patterns for their respective characters. That must have been so much fun. That's a wall I want to be a fly on. I'm imagining they probably started with some very silly, like, community theater warm-ups and, like, speech things, and I'm just picturing John Travolta and Nicolas Cage rolling around on the ground, babbling nonsense at each other. That's a movie in its own that I would love to see.
So when we're talking 2 weeks, they spent 2 weeks together. We talking like 24/7? These guys like sharing a bed like Frank and Charlie here?
One can hope.
I'd like to think of it as a bit more wholesome, like Bert and Ernie.
They share a bed.
Yeah, they do.
The prison scenes were shot on location inside the defunct Eagle Rock Power Plant in Southern California. The boat scene at the end of the film would be shot in San Pedro and would take 4 weeks to shoot. For the face transplant scenes, the special effects team would use realistic latex and animatronic dummies of Cage and Travolta. Yeah, gonna be honest, the special effects and the makeup and the latex and all that, that's where the movie lost me. That's where I felt like they kind of dropped the ball. We'll get into that later. In the original cut of the film, the boy would not be adopted by Archer and his family, which was a decision by heads of the studios not believing it made sense. I agree with heads of the studios. John Travolta just kind of stole a kid. And no one questions it. After showing the cut to test audiences, 65% of the audience asked, "What happened to the little boy?" Really, test audience? Like, he promised that the kid wouldn't grow up like his parents. And he's doing that by, doing the whole, 80s, 90s cop glorification, keeping the streets safe nonsense that people always do in action movies. That's enough. That should be enough to satisfy the audience. Bunch of jerks.
But Steve, won't somebody think of the children?
I'd rather not. They would then get everybody back together for last-minute reshoots. Face Off would be released on June 27th, 1997, and go on to earn $245.7 million against an $80 million budget. Well done. Making it the 11th highest grossing film of 1997. It would go on to be nominated for 1 Oscar for Best Sound Effects Editing. Okay. And 6 MTV Movie Awards, winning 2. Less surprising. It's joined the ranks of the glorious Oscar-winning Suicide Squad, so sure, why not? In 2019, Paramount announced plans to remake Face Off with a new cast. In 2021, it was reported that Adam Wingard was set to direct, and the film would be a sequel instead. If they're not getting Cage and Travolta back, I don't want it. Also, I still don't want it.
This doesn't need a sequel.
Nope.
No, this is one of those movies. Just please, just leave it alone.
Just give me a really crappy, TV series on Fox, and let's just call it a day, guys, okay?
1 season gets canceled after the first season because not enough people watch it. That's fine. We can live with that.
And then it ends up on Netflix.
And it's called Faces Off.
And then I get mad that they didn't make any more than 1 season of it after I watch it on Netflix.
And thus concludes the generically named How It's Made. Oh, that's how they made it.
All right, folks, before we get into another segment, again, quick commercial break. Keep your face on, all right? We'll be back.
Commerce, buying some stuff.
Are you looking for something tantalizing and titillating to spice up your nights out? Why not come be enchanted by Spellbound Cabaret, the queer, all-inclusive burlesque troupe of Rochester, New York. Watch our talented and sexy beauties shake, shimmy, and strut their stuff. We produce everything from classic and creepy to hilarious and horrific. So no matter what your fancy, we'll have something to fulfill your desires. You can catch our shows on the last Friday of every month at Boulder Cafe, located at the corner of Alexander and South Clinton in Rochester. Doors open at 8 p.m. with showtime at 9. If you're feeling especially indulgent, we also offer limited VIP seating with complimentary champagne and dessert. Pre-sale tickets for both VIP and general admission are available at spellboundtickets.com. That's spellboundtickets.com. So come on out and see all that Spellbound has to offer.
Welcome back, folks.
Hey, just kidding. It's still the commercial. Buy more stuff.
People don't listen to him. All right, he's clearly been drinking, taking drugs with random drug dealers. I'm pretty sure I see him smoking a marijuana right now.
All of this is available for purchase with your legal U.S. American dollars.
Steve, if you don't get help, I'm going to have to get into this breakdown.
Well, do what you gotta do.
Oh, don't do this to me.
That's right, folks. The breakdown is the part of the pod where we talk about the entire plot of the film, beginning to end, going through pretty much every single scene that we can. Are we going to end up skipping a few scenes or a few lines here and there?
Nope. We're even gonna make up a few that weren't in there, just for good measure.
No, we're not going to have time to do that. No one's trying to be here for the next 6 hours. So guess what, folks? If we miss a scene or a line or a character that you really wish that we had talked about, hit us up on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube and call us out. We might read it, but we also might laugh at you. All right, folks, in any case, let's get into this breakdown. Time to off this face in 3, 2. FBI Special Agent Sean Archer is taking his 6-year-old son, Michael, played by Miles Jeffrey, for a ride on a carousel in downtown Los Angeles. Meanwhile, Castor Troy, a career terrorist, sets up a sniper rifle on the hill overlooking the carousel. He takes aim at Archer, waits until he gets a clean shot, and fires. The bullet travels through Archer's back and chest, killing his son Michael instead.
This movie starts out like every good movie should. Nicolas Cage killing a child.
Bam! Got him. You're gonna be just fine, baby doll.
I really appreciate Nicolas Cage's the one and only time he has a mustache is in this sniper scene.
Like, there's no point to that mustache whatsoever.
But also, weirdly, he has a mustache as Big Daddy, where he's also shooting a child.
But he also has a mustache in Raising Arizona, where he's, like, taking care of a child, I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen Raising Arizona, but just based off the cover. So really what I'm hearing is Nicolas Cage is a wild card, but he's more so of a wild card with children when he has a mustache.
Correct.
What I'm hearing is that Kick-Ass, Face Off, and Raising Arizona all take place in the same world.
That would be very interesting, because especially like Kick-Ass, Nicolas Cage's character also is obsessed with John Woo movies specifically. Like throughout the movie, he has Hit Girl like reciting like John Woo's filmography back to him in trivia about John Woo movies.
Let's not give Hollywood any more ideas, please.
Give us a John Woo movie with Nicolas Cage playing someone who's obsessed with Kick-Ass. So as soon as this movie starts, the very first image we see, John Travolta on a carousel with a child, this super, super glowy effect on the lens. I knew immediately, oh, this kid's dead. This kid is gonna die so hard.
All the overdramatics in this scene are ridiculous. The way Cage tosses the cover off of the sniper rifle on the hill, like he's a magician revealing a trick. And then he's sipping some drink through a straw. We're never shown the drink. So as far as we know, he could literally just be putting a straw in his mouth for no reason. Get balloons floating away, slow motion, blood-stained carousel horse. What the hell is this opening?
My favorite is right at the end of the sequence, there are a couple like sped up and choppily edited shots of just the carousel spinning. It's just like they're trying so hard to make it look dramatic and big, and it's just a carousel spinning.
Like, you as the audience are sitting watching this going, that's great. When are we getting to the faces?
Exactly.
6 years later, Archer is the field agent in charge of the FBI's Los Angeles field office and has been relentlessly pursuing Troy ever since the assassination attempt. He is agitated that his closest agents, Tito Blondy, played by Robert Wisdom, Wanda, played by Margaret Cho, Buzz, played by James Denton, and Loomis, played by Matt Ross, have no information on Troy's latest whereabouts. The melodrama of these slow camera shots panning and zooming in, accompanied by this highly dramatic music, is another hilarious trope of the 90s.
For a while, if you needed something to scream action movie and just be like cool and dramatic and exciting, you didn't slow stuff down. You sped it up. Big overarching helicopter shot of a city, speed it up. Tracking shot through an office to reveal a character, speed it up. It's extreme. It's a trope that I'm glad is kind of falling out of fashion.
Also, clearly Archer agitated, but they still haven't caught Troy. And again, I'm laughing at just the...
We'll take a break when the case breaks, okay?
Did you work hard on that line there, John? But I don't hate the film. I'm laughing at it, but I don't hate this film whatsoever.
Listen, this is just one of many out there lines that were not thought through that just continue happening through this movie.
This movie is full of just basic stock characters that are just going through the motions paint by numbers just in service of getting to the gimmick. In fact, I'd go so far as to say everybody but Castor Troy is a real by-the-numbers basic cop movie character.
Meanwhile, Troy poses as a minister to sneak into the Los Angeles Convention Center, where he assembles and arms a large bomb. As he leaves, he cannot resist the opportunity to headbang to a choir and grope a blonde choir girl. Back at the office, Archer is informed by Tito that Troy's brother, Pollux, played by Alessandro Nivola, has chartered a jet at a local airfield and paid in cash. Archer calls together a crew for a takedown operation, perfectly showing us who Troy is here. The man is insane in an over-the-top, yet still slick manner. He is here to do whatever the hell he wants. The second he has an impulse, he's enacting it. He's going for it.
He is an unstoppable force of chaos and madness and joy. And I had so much fun watching him set a bomb and threaten people and be just the worst person. I don't know if any other actor could make me feel that way about such a terrible character.
There's also a real brotherly playfulness between Troy and Pollux here. Like, I love the little touch of Troy is being the older brother and he's trying to tie Pollux's shoe for him. It's a relationship that they explore further, but this perfectly summarizes it. Troy takes care of Pollux, not really the other way around.
Yeah, for all his over-the-top mustache twirling, scene-chewing insanity, he has one eensy tiny speck of humanity. It's important to have that.
Also, notice at the office, so Archer is first told his wife is on hold, but then he ignores her because there's a break in the case, which shows us that his main focus has been taking down Troy and nothing about his personal life. Quick, simple, and effective. Credit where it's due, you know?
Tap cat married to the job.
As the plane prepares to start its takeoff, Archer and his team begin to give chase to the jet. Troy kills the pilot and an undercover agent that was planted on the plane before taking control of the plane and is able to avoid Archer's team. Archer commandeers a helicopter and uses it to damage the plane so it can't take off. Troy crashes the jet into a hangar in an attempt to escape.
I have so much to say about this sequence in the film. The face that Nicolas Cage makes when he shoots Agent Winters and drops her off out of the plane and her dead body rolls really goes back to highlighting just how insane his character is.
Yeah, he's just like, oopsie, what are you gonna do? Well, there she goes. And I recognize I shouldn't be rooting for this guy. God damn it. What a silly goose.
It's definitely a kick the cat scene too. Like, let's just call it what it is. It's also further showing us though that Archer doesn't care about anything other than taking down Troy. He literally runs right past her lifeless body in the runway and straight to the helicopter. He may as well have like jumped over her to really drive the scene home.
I really loved the 90s trope of shooting the pistol into the plane engine.
And that makes it explode, naturally.
Just a couple shots from a pistol. That's all it takes.
There are some very versatile bullets in this movie. Like, they're just able to accomplish so many different things with bullets.
That's Hollywood magic, baby. Hollywood magic. Troy whips out twin pistols, jumps out of the plane, and opens fire on the agents. Archer begins charging forward as Pollux draws and fires off a submachine gun. Archer avoids him and chases Troy further into the hangar. Pollux is then captured by Archer's team, which is witnessed by Troy, who leaves him behind to make his escape. Archer continues to pursue him, eventually knocking out Troy by activating a wind turbine, which blows him into a ventilation grate, but not before taunting him about the bomb. Scenes like this are where John Woo really shines as a director. He knows how to tell a story with action, even if it's completely over the top. Archer is literally clamoring to get to Troy at times. Like, he's jumping over things, two pistols going, he's tripping, he doesn't care. He's just going to keep going. And Troy is, in turn, killing anyone and everyone in his path without a second thought.
I did want to point out in this scene, in a very 90s fashion, when Nicolas Cage, Castor Troy, steals the SWAT guy's shotgun and then turns and shoots the other cop and he goes flying. I had to rewind it like 4 times because I was laughing because you can see the wire throw this guy back.
There's a few scenes of that where you can clearly see either the wires or more specifically the stunt actors, where The people they got to do the stunts for Cage and Travolta look nothing like them whatsoever. Like down to like their hairstyle isn't even close to being right, and you get clear shots of their face as well.
All I can think of when you say that is the scene in Anchorman when Jack Black kicks the dog off the bridge, and you can clearly see that it's a stuffed animal. Like they don't even try. It's part of the gag.
It's perfect.
Archer returns home where he gets into an argument with his teenage daughter, Jamie, played by Dominique Swain, before telling his wife, Eve, played by Joan Allen, that with Troy behind bars, he is going to ask for a desk job so he can start spending more time at home. Jamie running out the room in high heels, looking like she's about to fall flat on her face at any moment, is unintentionally hilarious. What a horrible performance by Dominique Swain.
Yeah, this is, again, just like a super, super basic, generic, angsty, rebellious teenage child trope that every movie's got to have. They don't even try to dress it up in anything. Like, they straight up have the daughter telling the parents that they don't understand her. It's great.
Yeah, she does not get better as the movie goes on.
She gets worse.
Yes, she does. She gets worse.
The wrong kid died, god damn it.
More than anything, this scene just kind of shows that Archer's home life isn't great. And it's because of his own decisions. His inability to be there.
He's just too good of a cop. If only he didn't care so much about being a cop. Oh, 90s.
Back at his office, Archer is presented with a floppy disk found in Pollux' briefcase by Special Ops Agent Miller, played by CCH Pounder. The disk provides schematics for a biological bomb, confirming that Troy wasn't bluffing about the bomb. Pollux refuses to give any details regarding the bomb to any of the agents. Miller takes Archer to the Walsh Institute, a private medical institution that specializes in various types of state-of-the-art surgical operations. There, Archer sees Troy on life support and is told that he's in a medically induced coma. Archer is then told that they want to put Troy's face on his face through surgery so he can infiltrate the prison to get information about the bomb from Pollux. After not being successful in getting Troy's gang to talk, Archer agrees to the surgery. Archer kind of being taken aback by the applause from his office when he walks back in. He doesn't feel like he did enough to stop Troy because of all the people that have died since he started hunting him. Like, it's still eating away at him.
Yeah, he's the forever tortured cop. Still mourning the loss, and then mourning more loss. Oh, the weight of the world is on that man's shoulders.
I love this little exchange between Gina Gershon's character and Archer. Like, Archer's threatening to take her kid away from her. She doesn't talk, but she doesn't know anything. So instead, he calls in her brother, and Sean just decides to beat the crap out of him instead.
It happens.
If I remember correctly, put a gun barrel in his eye. To be fair, Dietrich Kessler,
Played by Nick Cassavetes.
yes, Dietrich Hassler does look John Travolta straight in the face and say, "Hey, how's your dead son?"
Yep.
That's literally the line, too.
Just laying it all on real thick. There's no subtlety needed here.
So I think maybe a little bit justifiable to throw this guy in his chair straight to the ground and point the gun in directly in his face. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, that's just giving him the emotional reaction that he's fishing for.
that's true. And again, 90s trope.
Yep. Gots to punch them criminals.
Got a law and order, these sons of bitches.
Oh, yeah. What really got me about when they're walking through the Walsh Institute is they show, like, the procedure of the one agent getting his ear reconstructed. And they do essentially 3D printed body parts, which, you know, is a thing that happens now. But they just do it all with lasers. Like, laser just shoots onto an empty dish, and then it just, an ear materializes on the dish.
Steve, I have an explanation for that. Ready?
Go on.
Science.
Oh, I didn't think of that. You got me there.
I also like how with the procedure, they take the time to explain how it works. It
Yep.
walks this weird line of vague but detailed. They give you just enough time for it to seem plausible if you're an average individual. Then they take the time to show you the procedure, which helps with the drama of it all, because let's be honest, people came here specifically to see how they were going to do this, so they want to give the audience what they paid for.
Absolutely. And there's just a whole lot of technobabble, a lot of yada yada. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the face isn't just skin that just like is sort of over the front of the skull. Like there's like tendons and muscles attached on the underside of it so that we can move our skin and our face and emote. Like there's, a lot of little intricate connections there. Like, am I correct in this assumption here?
Yeah, so they even explained that too.
Did they though?
In the most unlucrative, basic way, yes. It's part of the technobab.
What really gets me is when I see them putting the face on to John Travolta, they don't take any care in like attaching anything. They literally just lay it on and then just sort of like pat it in with their fingers. They're just like, oh, that's good enough. That sort of fits.
Okay, but Steve, listen, I have an explanation for all of that. Science.
Ah, damn it. Got me again.
Listen, the movie's title is Face Off, and
yeah, I didn't come here to see them put a face back on.
They got to do something with these faces, Steve. They can't just let them lying around an operating room, right? That'd be really, really irresponsible of them.
Well, I guess I'm doing it wrong then.
After having further alterations to match Troy, such as his voice, hair, and body type, Archer, as Troy, is taken to the same high-security prison where Pollux is being held. He manages to convince Pollux that he is Troy and gains information on the bomb's location. Another thing that kind of comes off realistic here is Archer as Troy's response after the surgery. He wakes up, gets his face unwrapped, has a whole psychological break, just like pointing at everyone in the room like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
I'm not so sure, though. I thought this was real silly. Like, he knew that this procedure is going to make him look like Nicolas Cage. That's the one thing that I knew going into this, but when he wakes up, it's like a surprise. Like, hey, I didn't sign up to look like Nicolas Cage. You're supposed to make me look like Nicolas Cage, you jerks.
So, Steve, it's like a piñata, right? You pretty much know when that piñata is actually going to break, but you're also not sure what kind of candy's inside. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I'm not going to complain that there's candy.
It's not complaining. It's trying to process everything that's actually happening, I feel.
I'm not going to expect a full turkey dinner to come out of this piñata.
This is one of the parts of the movie that I really hated, when they're like adjusting his voice to match Nicolas Cage's, and you can tell it's just John Travolta voiceovering like Nicolas Cage, lip syncing his words. It happens twice in the movie, this point and later on, and both times I hated it so much that it wasn't even fun. I did not like it. It made me very uncomfortable.
Although I do like how we do get an explanation. Hey, why can my voice change? It's a microchip we implanted. That's it. Simple, easy, call it a day. How does it happen? Technology.
That's how microchips work at 100%. But one thing they set up here that doesn't pay off, and most things in the script do pay off, but like they make a point of saying, hey, this microchip in your larynx is very, very delicate. A violent, hit or even a big sneeze could knock this thing loose. What happens with it at the end isn't really a payoff. I was really expecting it to like happen in the prison and like he's got to be extra clever to keep his cover or some shit like that.
It's like a loose tie-in, and I feel like they probably threw it in there because they got to the end of the script. They're like, oh crap, we should put something in here about this.
Like Steve was saying, it felt very cheap. Just no payoff from it. You set it up, and then you could see it from a mile away exactly where they were going to incorporate this by the end of the movie.
Yeah, there's a couple times in this movie that happens, but all the rest of them actually pay off the way you think they will.
Let's talk about this prison. First off, how do we all feel about the magnetic floor and metal boots?
There have got to be easier ways to contain your prison population in the middle of the ocean. Oh god, those boots had to have been so expensive to make and to maintain. Who signed off on that? And also, it's not just magnets in the boots, it's the whole floors are wired to tell the location of every prisoner at all times. Who's funding this thing? Oh my god, this is such a ridiculous prison.
A testament, though, to Cage's acting when Archer as Troy has these consistently soft eyes instead of the ones that are manic, like we got to see at the beginning of the film. Like once he steps into that prison, Gen Pop area, the crazy comes out a little bit. Like, granted, he had to get the crap ticked out of him to get there, but the best way you can tell is just look at their eyes. Their eyes are really telling who is who.
Well, there's two things about this prison scene. One is Thomas Jane making an appearance here in Face Off, and I never realized this. Did not realize this, when I watched this movie 15 years ago, that Thomas Jane was in Face Off.
Was he one of the prisoners?
He's the not the brother, but the other nerdy guy with glasses. That's Thomas Jane.
Wow.
That's Thomas Jane, the Punisher.
Holy heck.
Yeah.
That's wild. Something that occurred to me when he gets into this prison, though. So the government and this fancy science institute have spent all this time and money and resources changing his entire body to make him look exactly like Nicolas Cage, making his voice sound exactly like Nicolas Cage. They spend zero time training him on like mannerisms or how to act like him or how to walk like him or anything about getting into character whatsoever. They just give him a surgery and toss him into the prison.
They justify that though by saying you're the only one who could do this because you've been studying him for so long. You know all of his mannerisms and everything.
Even so, we could have gotten just a quick scene of him in like the armored car on the way to the prison or the boat or whatever, how they get there, like thinking about having to be Nicolas Cage or like practicing or trying to get into character in some way or another. But like, it's clear in the world of the movie that it's not until he's in the prison with the prisoners that he even considers the fact that he has to act like Nicolas Cage.
Again, I feel that they loosely justified it enough, which is this film doesn't need full-on explanations other than... Honestly, no, this film doesn't need full-on explanations. All right, it's given us everything it's going to give us. Would this really have made the film better if they gave a whole... All right, let's see you take acting lessons? Would that have made the film better for you?
Are you telling me a single shot of just John Travolta sitting by himself trying to perfect his Nicolas Cage impression would not be entertaining as hell?
I think it would, but I don't think it would fit for the overall theme of the film, which is let's get ridiculous without being too silly.
Well, I guess we'll never know.
Troy unexpectedly awakens from his coma and discovers his face missing. He calls his gang and they force Dr. Walsh to transplant Archer's face onto him. Troy then kills the only people who know of the transplant. At the prison, Archer as Troy prepares to tell Biondi of the location, but is surprised when Troy as Archer appears. Troy as Archer gloats that no one knows of the transplant and that he will take over Archer's life. Troy is losing his mind here. Like, the whole breathing thing he does is so on point when he wakes up. He's like a pug trying to breathe is what it sounds like, but it's more squelchy because it's just blood and face whatever. He sounds exactly like someone who no longer has a face would sound like.
I found this scene like super unsettling and just like felt like a real intimidating villain moment. And I love the way they shot it, just like from Troy's back or keeping his face off screen. But the second we see his face on screen, I lost it. I thought it was so silly, and it looked like they just kind of smeared raspberry jam on Nicolas Cage's face and called it a day. It does not look like a man who's had his face taken off whatsoever, and I wish they could have just like left it off screen entirely.
Yeah, I don't feel like we ever needed to see it. I kind of like, well, other than the quick little shots from the side that we get, I like just because it's also from a distance. When you get too close to it, yeah, it's, come on, guys, do better.
They could have absolutely left the reflection in the glasses out of the movie. We didn't need that. We didn't even want that.
Why can't John Woo ever learn that less is more, you know?
He's just trying to woo you, Steve.
No, it's working though.
So we as the audience also know that the reveal with Troy as Archer is coming, but it still felt satisfying to have it confirmed that this is exactly how it went down. The whole film has led up to this very moment where both of their faces are switched and they're finally confronting each other in person again. I also feel the little flashbacks showing the trio getting doused in gasoline before being set on fire. That was Archer imagining how it went down. And I feel like that's also exactly how it went down because he knows Troy so well.
And why is he left completely unattended? This like most dangerous terrorist in the world in a hospital bed without so much as a handcuff or an armed guard. It seems like the whole building is empty except for him.
Capitalism, baby. It was too expensive for all that stuff. You know, we gotta fight terrorism on a budget.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, it costs a fortune to keep all that medical equipment running instead.
I feel like I'd be a lot more confused and upset if I woke up from a coma and my face was gone. I feel like there'd be a lot more confusion here. He comes to terms with it pretty quickly. He's literally on a phone call and he's like, they took my face.
Cage, baby. And also, so there's the scene where Archer finally talks to Pollux and gets the location of the bomb. Archer's supposed to be like the best FBI agent in the world, right? He barely gets Pollux to trust him, maybe. And then as soon as a location is said, he's just like, oh, thanks, walks away, and just basically blows his own cover.
Verbatim, the line is, you're fucking pathetic, you know that? And then he like walks away.
And he doesn't bother to make like contact with the outside at all before doing this, or touching base with his contacts at the FBI, or anything. Or even anything to make sure that he's actually telling him the truth and is not still suspicious. And, you know, feeding him something fake to test his brother's knowledge.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
It's not a bold move. It's just dumb. It's just dumb!
Pollux is freed when he willingly tells Troy as Archer of the bomb's location, and Troy as Archer disarms the bomb in a dramatic fashion. Troy as Archer then earns the admiration from the FBI office and becomes close to Archer's wife, Eve, and daughter, Jamie. Troy as Archer's exchange with Eve is pretty great. We get to see Travolta's take on Cage's mannerisms now. Like we said before, he nails it. And then the exchange he has with Jamie, where he takes her cigarettes, has sexual tension from Troy's perspective, but none from Jamie, and it is so very uncomfortably creepy. I feel like that's what they were going for, but they did it too well.
It's very, let's call it, spacey.
Too
soon?
Yeah, maybe.
That's fine, cut that.
I love the dramatics we get from Troy as Archer as he's disarming the bomb. He knows exactly what he needs to do. He's just savoring the moment. He's doing something so heroic in a deliciously evil manner, and the noise he makes when he grabs his secretary's ass back at the office, it's just fucking
so goofy.
Why?
What an absolute card.
In between all this is where he starts romancing Eve.
Yeah, reads her diary and uses date night to get some.
Oh yeah, he definitely took her to Pound Town.
100%.
But here's my one question though. So you've obviously been married to this person for years. You've clearly had sex multiple times.
Are you saying their penises weren't the same?
Yes, exactly what I'm going to say. Listen, you line up two random people's dicks side by side and tell me they look exactly the same, and I guarantee you it's not the case. Honey, what did you get foreskin again?
Or he's an FBI agent, hyper-conservative, American, 20th century suburbia. She's never seen it. Lights out under the covers every time. She has never seen his dick.
What's the over-under on Troy as Archer eating her ass?
Oh, I'd say that's pretty high. The man has an anal fixation.
Every time that man said, like, I just love a good peach, I literally thought in my head, he's going to eat this woman's ass. This is so progressive for the 90s.
It's a revolutionary, you know, especially in the priest costume.
You know, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell everybody listening, we are looking for advertisers for this podcast.
Perfect.
Your business here.
I realized this later on down the line. I don't know if you guys ended up catching this, but he wines and dines her with lobster. And we get to a point where later on we find out she's a vegetarian. Like, how do you not have red flags going off? Like,
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
I didn't realize that she was a vegetarian at all watching this.
Or she's the 90s kind of vegetarian that still eats fish.
Pescatarian.
Pescatarian, but they called it vegetarian.
when Cage finally convinces her that he's Sean Archer, he's like telling her the story of their first date night. When I took you out to the steakhouse and didn't know she was vegetarian and she chipped her tooth on rye bread.
That's right, he got surf and turf. Surf was an option. She didn't go for it, so that theory's out.
If I drove out to my girlfriend's place and she was like trying to wine and dine me and made me something I clearly don't want or don't eat, gigantic red flags. Who the fuck are you?
Honey, did you get a face-off surgery?
Are you honeypotting me?
Back at the prison, Archer as Troy escapes after staging a riot and retreats to Troy's headquarters. All right, we got to talk about the prison escape sequence.
These dumbass prison guards.
Oh god, they are so dumb. And what's also weird to me is at one point in time, Archer as Troy is like telling the guy you're escaping with, I think like Dubox or Dubois, whatever his name is.
Ivan Dubov.
So while him and Dubov are trying to escape, Dubov is literally killing people, and Archer stops him. He goes, hey, no, don't do that. But then 3 seconds later, he's like shooting a dude directly in the chest with a shotgun without missing a beat. What? Are you the only one who gets to kill here, people, Sean? Are you're the decider in this situation?
Apparently.
Oh my god. And even like the whole escape sequence is completely over the top. It even has a Wilhelm scream thrown in for good measure.
You gotta have a Wilhelm. But also just like the way that he breaks free from the guards is just so dumb and so easily could have been prevented. He, like, they're putting him in the chair to give him a little zappy zap in his head, and they're about to put him in. And he's like, hey, wait a second, I got the cigarette. Can you give me a light? And they're like, oh, okay, sure, yeah, sure. It's not a prison or anything. They light his cigarette, and they continue to take his boots off anyway without securing him whatsoever. And, of course, he gets away.
No one said these were competent black site prison guards.
Hey, man, this is 90s water Guantanamo. They gotta have someone who's mildly competent.
I liked that whole prison fight prior was because he, and I quote, had a fuck sandwich with Ivan's wife and sister. And then we see Dubov getting the holy hell zapped out of him to the point where there's puke on his like mouth retainer so he doesn't, bite his tongue off in the electric chair. And they just toss this guy on the floor. And somehow a couple words from Nicolas Cage brings him straight back from the beyond. He just stands up and he goes, out! And like slams a table into the guards.
The electrotherapy turned him into Chief from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. They really needed him to get out of that prison in the script.
And they just fucking sent it.
And it only works because John Woo said, no, more guns, more explosions.
And speaking of explosions, of course, the entire roof of this secret middle of the ocean prison is inexplicably covered in flammable barrels.
Archer as Troy meets up with Troy's primary drug kingpin, Dietrich, and Dietrich's sister, Sasha, along with her son, Adam, played by David McCurley, who reminds him of Michael. Archer as Troy discovers that Adam is Troy's son. So, while high, Archer saying that he wants to take Troy's face off. This was completely ad-libbed between Cage and Cassavetes. They didn't think it was going to end up in the final cut. They just did it because they thought it would be hilarious. And they were very surprised when they watched this at the premiere and went, oh, they put that in.
Amazing. It makes the movie.
Because you're literally calling out the premise as this drug-induced fever dream, which is exactly what it is. The film is making fun of itself. So at this point, you understand that The film realizes this is ridiculous, but it's going all in on it anyways.
Nicolas Cage playing John Travolta on drugs. Terrific.
How did they get Nicolas Cage's golden guns back?
He has more than one set.
The man is a global terrorist. You think he only has one set of special pistols? Come on.
You think he only has one set of golden pistols with chiclets and sunglasses?
Hey, it was the 90s. You didn't have to skim as much as you do nowadays, okay? Nowadays, terrorists get one gun and one gun only.
Yeah, times is tough, man.
I think this is an appropriate time to point out something that consistently happened in the movie that I personally hated, and that is John Travolta's like hand face thing.
Oh, yeah, it's so creepy.
It's so uncomfortable every time, and it's just like, you're not selling it to me that this is the way like this guy's like family knows that he like this is not his special thing that he does with his family. It's just fucking weird.
It's definitely meant to come off as endearing, but
it does not.
No, it misses that mark really hard. I don't know what else they really could have done that would have been original so it would stand out. Like, you can't do
literally anything.
Name another time where they do the face thing in another film.
I mean, no one should ever do that, so no.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that's probably why they went with it. Hey, no one does this. Why don't we do it?
Hey, no one has the father punching his son in the face as a form of endearment. We should put that in our movie.
Speaking of punching children, I feel the whole Adam is Troy's son and he reminds Archer of his dead son is way too on the nose. You're really trying to tug at my heartstrings here when really I just need more guns shooting off, man. That's all I want.
It's not necessary.
I'd like to point out that I don't give two shits that this kid has headphones that are playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow on. This child has tinnitus for life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those are in no way protective or noise canceling.
There's a quick scene before the SWAT attack where Troy's Archer literally drags Jamie's boyfriend out of his car as he's trying to force himself upon Jamie. And of course, the boyfriend is played by none other than recently convicted of 2 counts of rape, Danny Masterson.
Yep, I noticed that as well. It's an appropriate casting for him.
I like how this is slightly, again, this is going back to like touching on the fact that Castor Troy has this little tiny ounce of humanity.
But then as soon as he brings Jamie inside, he goes back to being awful and says, oh, it's because of how you're dressed.
This is also the scene where he gives her the butterfly knife.
Yep, and then as soon as he gave her the knife, the note I wrote, and again, this is my first viewing, gee, I wonder if that knife Cage gave the daughter will come back to kill him later.
You know, we're just gonna have to see what happens, boys. Troy as Archer learns of Archer's Troy's escape and hastily assembles a team to raid his headquarters. The raid turns into a bloodbath, and many FBI agents and several members of Troy's gang, including Pollux, are killed, while Archer, Sasha, and Adam are able to escape. Archer's supervisor, Director Victor Lazaro, played by Harve Presnell, blames Troy as Archer for the numerous slayings. Troy as Archer, furious over Pollux's death, kills Lazaro and makes it look like a heart attack. Troy as Archer is promoted to acting director. I'm going to also be honest, I'm not really big on this action scene as the others. It feels just okay at first, but it gets better when it's actually like Troy v. Sean.
This is a very busy, chaotic scene that's not edited very coherently.
This would be it where if I had one question for John Woo, just one, if you sat him in front of me and you were like, okay, you're gonna ask him one question about Face Off. What was the deal with the incest kiss there? Where Sasha and her brother like tongue kiss.
That was a weird moment.
I can answer that. Cassavetes was giving an interview and he was asked about it, and his response was, yeah, I don't know why. I just felt like that was just something these characters would do because they're bad guys, so I just went for it, and she just went with it.
It's a terrible explanation.
That literally is the only explanation he gave, and I'm like, that's... Through the power of editing, you didn't have to include that kiss.
Yep, agreed.
John Woo, why did you do this? Why did you leave this scene in?
It is certainly a choice.
Let's talk this exchange between Troy and Archer here. Like, there's some very on-the-nose symbolism with the two staring at the mirror before shooting at each other. Like, it's easy to shoot at the mirror when you're staring at the person you hate more than anyone. It's on the nose, but again, it also works so well because it's this film.
It's probably my favorite scene in the movie, honestly. Like I said earlier, if you didn't know this was a John Woo film, if you missed that part in the opening credits, you would immediately know now with this mirror scene. With any previous exposure to John Woo, you'd be like, oh, John Woo did that.
Also, let's talk about Pollux dying. So this is super important to Troy's story. Troy is now experiencing true loss. He doesn't care if he lost his friends. He doesn't care if he lost a past lover. He doesn't care if he lost his own kid. Granted, he didn't know it was his own kid, but he doesn't care if, like, children die in front of him, whatever. But he cares that his brother is gone, because his brother is the only person in the world that matters to him. And that little callback of him, tying his brother's shoe for him as, like, the last thing before he walks away. What this is supposed to show is that now with Pollux gone, Troy is about to become more unhinged than ever before. Archer as Troy finds safety for Sasha and Adam. Then he approaches Eve and convinces her to test Troy as Archer's blood to prove his identity. After testing the blood and being convinced of her husband's identity, Eve tells Archer that Troy will be vulnerable at Lazaro's funeral. Notice the way Archer is talking with Eve. He's perfectly capturing the speech patterns and mannerisms of Travolta's character, like even right down to the breathing. Like we've said it before, and I'll say it again, this performance is so good, and I feel this is where it's really brought out. Because when he's in the field, he's being a different person, but when he's with his wife, he's kind of who he wants to be, not who he feels like he has to be.
I stand by the statement that it's really hard to decide who's playing the better opposite actor. If Cage is doing a better Travolta or Travolta's doing a better Cage.
For me, overall, I think it's Travolta doing a better impression of Cage, just because Travolta's not doing anything extreme with his performance as himself here. If it was something like Grease, where he's like very, hey, I'm a character, I'm Danny Zuko, or like a Battlefield Earth, where he's like, like there's some sort of extreme something to play into and to play up and to caricaturize. I think Nicolas Cage would have had a more impactful impression of him, but there's a lot more subtlety to work with there than Travolta has to work with Cage.
At the ceremony, Archer as Troy finds that Troy as Archer has anticipated his actions and taken Eve hostage. Sasha arrives and a gunfight ensues. Sasha manages to save Eve after taking a bullet. Archer as Troy promises a dying Sasha that he will take care of Adam and raise him away from criminal life. Cool little mirroring moment here. So we get a scene showing each party gearing up, if you will, to go off to the funeral. You have our hero and villain and the woman in each of their life having kind of a different conversation. One woman has to go with him to be safe. The other can't go with him in order to be safe.
I feel like we really got to talk about just the scene itself here.
The Mexican standoff.
The Mexican standoff, the doves, the pigeons, the empty small church.
See, when I think of John Woo, this specifically is what I think of. Slow motion, choir, chanting, some Latin nonsense, birds flying everywhere, specifically white birds, and guns, and everything is super slow. When I think John Woo, that's exactly what I think. And it works. I'm not gonna lie. I was completely sucked in while recognizing how over the top, cheesy, ridiculous it is.
So what you're trying to say is that John Woo is for the birds?
Oh, yes.
This is a character death that we're supposed to feel something for, and I felt nothing. Did you guys feel any type of sadness or, oh no, she's dying kind of thing?
No. I'm just like, okay. Well, she served her part in the movie. What I did love though was Eve smashing that dude in the face with a chair. Just a great moment for her. Loved it.
90s was the perfect time to hit somebody with a chair.
Oh yeah, you gotta hit people with chairs. That chair's gonna break into a million pieces immediately. Also figured out why, for all the shooting Nicolas Cage and John Travolta do towards each other this entire movie, I figured out why they never hit each other. First off, they're dual-wielding guns, and second off, they keep doing somersaults while they're shooting each other. They're spending too much time looking cool that they're not, like, aiming their guns. Come on, guys.
Do you not do somersaults while you're shooting guns at your mortal enemy?
Not when I'm dual-wielding. Come on, I'm not a monster.
Do you not side jump out of a plane that has crashed into a building with your golden guns just firing away?
Not since last week.
So Steve is actively being hunted by the LAPD right now, so keep it hush.
Yep, that's why I come here to That Sounds Terrible Go On, the one place they'll never find me.
Lord knows our fans can't. In a fight between the rivals outside, Jamie shoots and injures Archer's Troy. Troy's Archer flees the church, with Archer's Troy pursuing him. Troy's Archer briefly takes Jamie hostage, but she escapes by stabbing him with the butterfly knife that Troy's Archer had given her for self-defense. I think this is a solid callback with the butterfly knife. Like, yes, it's very obvious this is going to come back in some way, but it works, so I'm not mad about it.
Yes, but after this scene, that knife wound may as well not be there.
It didn't hinder Troy at all.
He specifically instructed her on how to stab in a way that would make a person bleed out. Like, right in the thigh where there's an important artery, twist the blade so it won't close. Nothing.
Well, Steve, listen, Steve. She can barely act. What makes you think she knows how to stab people?
Well, you got me there.
Troy's Archer reaches the docks and commandeers a speedboat, and Archer's Troy follows and commandeers one of his own. A chase ensues that ends when Archer's Troy forces Troy's Archer to the shore via collision. Boat chases generally feel very stilted, but they made this fun by, first off, not making it too short, and two, actually having the chase be just between our hero and villain. Do some things get in the way? Yeah, but they're serving as obstacles that these two have to overcome in order to get to each other. It's not like, oh, look at all the henchmen behind me as I escape. No, it's main villain, main hero, just literally duking it out with boats.
And the physics of these boats is just, it's something else. First off, they shoot all the boat cops, which, you know, whatever, fine. That's what you sign up for when you join the boat police force. But then the one boat drives straight through another boat, completely obliterates that, and it still just runs fine. It's a little bit on fire, but it's otherwise just a perfectly fine normal boat. Keeps driving along normal. So the boat that got crashed through, of course, explodes. Giant fireball, like boats do on the water. And then as soon as Nicolas Cage gets off the boat that crashed through it, well, that one gonna explode too, because it's a boat. And then finally, that last boat that they're standing on crashes into the metal shore industrial nonsense, launches them 20 feet in the air, at least, and then the boat explodes too. Everything explodes.
So while they were in the air, it is the biggest moment where it's blatant that the stunt doubles don't look anything like Cage or Travolta whatsoever. Different hairstyles, different facial structures, like different skin tones, the whole 9 yards. They look nothing like their counterparts.
Now, Steve, Corey, both of you are skipping over a really pivotal point of this boat chase, and Nicolas Cage hanging on the chain, and then water skiing on the heels of his shoes.
Sure, that's how shoes work.
The fact that a stunt actor got paid to literally hang onto the side of a speeding boat, and then he had to pull himself up to stand on the water while still going, is absolutely insane to me, and he probably got paid jack squat to do it. With the boats grounded, Archer as Troy bests Troy as Archer in a melee fight. Troy as Archer attempts to mutilate the Archer face that he's wearing to taunt and distract Archer as Troy, but Archer as Troy, instead gains the upper hand and kills Troy as Archer by impaling him with a spear gun, avenging the deaths of Michael and all of Troy's other victims. So that spear gun just happens to not fire off as it goes flying through the air and slamming into the ground. What brand is that? Because I need one.
This spear gun survives a whole boat explosion. And somehow not only survives a boat explosion, but makes it to a visible point of the beach or the boat dock near these two characters. It doesn't just get blown into fucking Timbuktu across a different part of the boat dock. It just conveniently lands where they're fighting.
I'm telling you, they just don't make them like they used to.
They really don't. And so him attempting to shoot Troy with the spear gun, Troy grabs the spear after it's been fired and stops it. So correct me if I'm wrong on how spear guns work, because I easily could be. The hook is propelled by some sort of like gas canister, right? So like you pull the trigger and then amount of gas is released and the pressure is what drives it forward, yeah?
Or like a spring, like a really high-powered spring sort of thing.
Spring would make more sense here, because once he grabs it after it's been fired, that's to stop it, and then he lets go and it keeps firing again. So I'm picturing like a CO2 canister. Like once it fires, it's gone.
I love and hate the spear gun. I can't choose either side of the line on this one.
Speaking of things that I love and hate, Archer shouting, just felt really out of character. Like, I get that he did it earlier, but it felt out of character then.
Yeah.
It was just like, this is not someone who's on his last leg. Like, this is not who Sean Archer has been shown to be whatsoever. He's not someone who can't formulate words. The man knows how to speak. If he'd said something like, "Why don't you die?" Okay, cool, that makes sense, but just die?
Yeah. And ultimately what stops him and gets him to release the spear gun is the obligatory 90s movie Kick in the Balls. They had to fit it in somewhere.
Gets him every time.
90s was all about kicking people in the balls in movies.
Lawless Wasteland, ladies and gentlemen. Lawless Wasteland. Backup agents arrive and address Archer as Troy as Archer, having been convinced by Eve of Archer's true identity. After the face transplant surgery is reversed, Archer returns home where he adopts Adam into his family, keeping his promise to Sasha. The symbolism of Archer seeing his face on a dead body and taking his wedding ring off of said body is used to symbolize that who he was no longer exists and that going forward he's a family man. But then they put too much on it when he tells the doc who's doing his face surgery, "This old bullet wound, I won't need it anymore." I feel like we just did not need to see him in the operating room. It just doesn't work for what they're going for.
Also, that's a callback to a thing that he said to an entirely different doctor. So what the hell does this doctor know what he's talking about?
Well, not only that is like this doctor that switched their faces. Like the whole point was that this doctor was this like covert black ops special surgeon that was the only one that could switch their faces. But then at the end of the movie, they're like, "We've got the top guys from Washington coming in. They'll fix it all." What?
My take on this, and I'm probably making leaps here, is that this procedure obviously took a lot of research and development, which means there's probably going to be documentation, and the techniques are going to be written down somewhere. I'm going to say that he's the only person who can do this because they didn't want anyone knowing about this technology. So they're bringing in the top surgeons they can to kind of piece together from his work and his research on how to do it. Probably making a leap there, but that's what my headcanon was when I watched that.
We're also going to address here the most poorly delivered line in this whole movie. Once again, coming from Jamie.
"Dad? I'm sorry I shot you."
That line just was so bad. As Corey said earlier, her acting got worse through the movie.
It really did. She became more and more of a child actor.
And the fact that she ran out to him no longer dressed like a mixture of 90s Gwen Stefani and Courtney Love.
She's cured now.
That's literally what that's
Yeah.
supposed to mean. It's like, guys, look, she's normal. She's a part of the family. She's not a rebel anymore because her dad loves her. What? The fuck is this?
Capitalism, baby.
Oh, sorry. No, wait. It gets better.
This is, Adam. He needs a place to live.
And they bring in the child, and the mom just goes, great. And just fades out like that. Like there's nothing else. They're just like, fantastic. This is wonderful. This will save our marriage.
No follow-up questions about where this kid came from or who its parents might be, anything. Nope, they're just, oh, free kid. Awesome. Two other dumb things I really want to point out. One, when he is going in for the surgery and he's talking about his scar, he specifically says that it's over his heart and then points to the wrong side of his chest. Also, he's at this facility getting this really, really intense procedure done to reverse the face surgery. And his wife doesn't wait there at the facility with him, or like in the waiting room or outside of the parking lot even, or whatever, to get him. And he presumably has to find his own way home. Man just had his face taken off and put back on. You expect him to drive? Like, she's just at home when he comes home from this huge surgery.
They didn't do any eye surgery, Steve, okay? How about you calm down?
This is the first time they're seeing him after he gets his real face put back on. It's just him, like, strolling in the door with Adam. Like, when did you have time to pick up a child?
This woman is a doctor, which means she has a fairly decent idea of everything that could go wrong with this surgery. And she just stays home.
To be fair, all these horrible things keep happening to her when she leaves her home, so I feel like staying home might be the best choice.
You got me there.
My follow-up. You're gonna raise the child of the guy that killed your kid? You tell me that dad, I don't care who you are, is not going to spite that child when he starts looking like his father.
So fun fact, I didn't put this in the generically named how it's made, but I will bring this up. After they made this change, the ending of the film started not testing well with Italian audiences due to the film trope in Italian films of a vendetta, where the child will grow up to kill whoever killed their father. That's literally, it stopped testing well with Italian audiences specifically because of that.
They should have listened to the Italians.
Do you think they're going to rename him Michael?
Michael 2.
Can we also point out the fact that John Travolta addresses Jamie and goes, Jamie, go show him to his new room. Presumably Michael's room.
Yeah.
Little fucked up.
A little bit.
Well, listen, they have still kept, it's 6 years later, they obviously kept everything the same. Or they turned it into a workout room and this child has to sleep on a fucking, like, weightlifting bench.
No, it has definitely been turned into an eternal shrine to their dead kid.
Yes, presuming that this is, like, definitely nothing has changed in this room in 6 years.
Yeah, because at one point John Travolta sleeps in there.
Oh, that's right, he does. Oh, God.
This is so uncomfortable that they're just like, hey, child of my mortal enemy who killed my kid, go sleep in my kid's shrine room.
It's probably the worst choice for anyone to adopt that kid. That kid is probably, and I don't say this lightly, better off in the system.
And folks, that's going to wrap up the breakdown. Oh, we broke down. Didn't we, Steve?
Oh, we you just gotta face it.
You know what, guys? I'm feeling a little off myself, so if you'll excuse me, I gotta go run, grab some water. In the meantime, go ahead, just listen to some advertisements, buy some things. Capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back, folks.
How do?
Steve, I'm doing okay, but do you think you could spot me,
Little Bits!
Oh, just a little bit.
That's right, folks. Little Bits is the part of the pod where we get to those things that we didn't get to say. Maybe some fun stuff that we learned along the way. So, starting with Paul, do you have any bits?
I was curious today and looked this fact up. The official body count for the movie is 54. 54 people die.
Rookie numbers. We gotta pump those numbers up.
All right, I'm out of bits.
All right, Steve, what you got?
This secret water Guantanamo that Nicolas Cage goes to undercover. Supposed to be just like the worst of the worst and super drab conditions. We have these magnet boots that track your location and everything. But there's also just a real giant screen TV hanging from the ceiling that shows CNN to them. That just seems like kind of a luxury and a privilege for prisoners of this in this sort of situation where the Geneva Convention doesn't even apply. They make a point of saying that. Just seemed like an odd amenity to have. Keep them up on world events. Corey, you got a bit?
Other pairs considered for the parts of Sean Archer and Castor Troy include Michael Douglas and Harrison Ford, Alec Baldwin and Bruce Willis, and Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, that third one would have been the best.
I think that would have been great. I think the Michael Douglas and Harrison Ford wouldn't have worked unless they wanted to make these guys older. To be fair, they weren't old by then, but they were in their 40s, I think, at this point in the 90s. So I feel like that would have changed the story greatly, and it would have been more of a thriller than an action film.
I also think a Michael Douglas impression wouldn't be super recognizable. Harrison Ford, absolutely, but...
Steve, you got a bit?
Just a bit that really demonstrates to me the power of John Woo slow-mo and like how much one can accomplish when everything moves so slowly. So right before the SWAT raid on the headquarters and all hell breaks loose with the gunfight and whatnot, the very first thing fired is a smoke grenade fired from a grenade launcher. The way it plays out, though, is grenade leaves the grenade launcher, Archer hears it, Archer warns everybody in the room that danger is imminent and they must duck, and he tackles everyone, and then the smoke grenade comes through the window. Between the time the grenade got fired and the time it hit the window, he's able to do all that thanks to John Woo slow-mo. It's a magical thing. It really gives you superpowers. Corey, you got a bit?
There are two big differences in the original script. First off, it was intended for this story to take place in the future. Hence, they could just future explain the technology. Didn't have to be standard times.
Which they do anyway.
Yeah, they chose not to do it because they wanted to keep the budget low. It essentially would have cost them another $10 or $20 million to create the scenery that they would want for the future.
That tracks.
The second bit is Castor Troy was originally going to be frozen in liquid nitrogen, which I think is where they started seeing the whole, oh, this is kind of like Demolition Man, where they, freeze you and put you in prison for however many years. Then they had the idea to have him climb an air traffic control tower and fall. And another idea was to have him electrocuted by high voltage wires. Because reasons.
Sure. I assume if that happened, we would see his skeleton glowing through the rest of his body at some point.
Steve, you got a bit?
This plot takes place over the course of a week, essentially. And that is a week of seemingly Sean Archer knocking over all these terrorist cells and making raids and making arrests and just beating up the terrorists. But over the course of a week. And in that time, Time Magazine has recognized these efforts to such a degree that they have not only declared him Person of the Year after a week of deeds, they've published the issue of the magazine in less than a week. In October, they've declared the Person of the Year unceremoniously, very quickly, and immediately put out the magazine.
Steve, you have to understand that this was the 90s and the press moved very, very fast, much faster than it does nowadays. That is why printed media is dying.
That's, all thanks to the information superhighway. Corey, you got a bit?
This film was part of the first batch of Paramount films released on Blu-ray. Given that Paramount was originally backed the HD DVD format, they decided in 2008 to go with Blu-ray instead, And the first batch of films was, of course, Face Off, 2007's Next, and 2007's B Movie.
It's quite the selection there. 2 Nicolas Cages and a Seinfeld.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Steve, you got a bit?
So when Archer sneaks back into his house and he's in full-on Nicolas Cage mode, and he goes in to talk to Eve and convince her that he's actually him, and we have different blood types, go test it. The first floor of their house has no less than 3 cops just roaming around with the express purpose of protecting the single person who's upstairs, and they know there's just one person. None of them hears a second set of footsteps or a conversation happening in a man's voice speaking with Eve upstairs, and they just have zero suspicion the entire time. So I guess what I'm trying to say is these are realistic cops. Corey, you got a bit?
So the magnetic boots the prisoners were wearing are the same boots that were worn by the Goombas in the 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie.
I thought those looked familiar. Like I was like, these look like Mario boots.
Yep. The distributor for this film, or one of them, I should say, was Buena Vista. And Buena Vista was the distributor for the 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie. So most likely they had access to the costumes in some way, shape, or form. And we're like, hey, can we reuse these to save cost? And because nobody wanted anything to do with that film, they said, sure, please take them.
Man, now I'm kind of disappointed we didn't get Nicolas Cage and John Travolta in the green and red jumpsuits.
Not this time.
We'll get to that.
Steve, you got a bit?
Master criminal, super terrorist Nicolas Cage, when he's asleep as John Travolta in bed next to Eve, she takes out this little mini syringe to like take some of his blood. If you look at it, the needle on it is just real big. It's a giant ass needle, and she jabs him with it and he doesn't notice, and he's like barely asleep. Just great super criminaling there in his part. And I'm not gonna say she's a doctor, so she's just automatically painless when she does it. That needle is thick as hell. Corey, you have another bit?
So a bit of a small cameo for those who are big fans of B, horror, and sci-fi films. One John Bloom, better known as Joe Bob Briggs, played one of the prison medical technicians. Joe Bob Briggs was the host of a TV show called Joe Bob's Drive-In Theater, where he would watch these horrible, horrible films. Think of like horror and sci-fi, fantasy variety. Think kind of like Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, but it's him kind of making fun of it the entire time and giving like sarcastic ratings about the film. So the show lasted for about 10 years, produced over 500 episodes.
Wow.
Yeah, it recently came back in 2018, still going on now. It's now called The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs. It's specifically on Shudder, the last time I heard. Highly recommend it if you like it, but pretty much if anyone listening is big into B movies of, again, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, you absolutely know who Joe Bob Briggs is. So, fun little fact.
Excellent.
Little bits!
Oh, just a little bit.
And now it's time for everybody's favorite segment.
Oh, the Untitled Ben Affleck segment?
That's right, Steve. It's As Played by Ben Affleck.
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
Now, for those who've never listened in, As Played by Ben Affleck
Untitled Ben Affleck segment
is when we choose one character from the film that we just watched to replace with Ben Affleck. Now, there are 3 eras of Ben Affleck that we have to choose from, so we choose a character to replace with Ben Affleck. What era and why? First, we have the Good Will Hunting era Ben Affleck, which is when he was the indie darling and just starting to get into action films. Next up, we have the Jiggly era Ben Affleck. This is the rom-com era, starting around the release of the Jiggly film. Finally, we have Batfleck era Ben Affleck, where he's older, more chiseled, and got that beautiful salt and pepper beard. Now, with that being said, Paul, who are you replacing with Ben Affleck? What era and why?
Jamie, Batfleck era Ben Affleck, because it would make the movie 10 times better.
Well, we can't give a worse performance.
Hard to argue that. Hard to argue that, Paul. Steve, who are you choosing?
I am going to be replacing Nick Cassavetes as Diedrich Hassler with Gigli era Ben Affleck. And specifically thinking of Gigli, he's that sort of smarmy, opulent, slimy criminal guy who's got like all the fancy clothes and just like the shittiest attitude. And I think he would have a lot of fun playing it, and it would be real silly to see, especially with that fur coat. Gotta love a criminal in a fur coat. So Corey, who are you replacing with Ben Affleck? What era and why?
I would be replacing Pollux Troy with Good Will Hunting era Ben Affleck. I think we need someone in this role who is young, kind of not really as well known. And I think that you put him in a suit and those little glasses things, he's going to knock it out the park. I think he would just be as fun, if not more, as Alessandro Nivola's take on the character. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up As Played by Ben Affleck.
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
And it's going to be leading us to our final question, which, of course, boys, is, would you watch this film again? Paul?
Absolutely. I'm going to probably give it another 3 to 5 years, but I'll watch it again.
Steve, what about you?
Oh, yeah. This being my first time, I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff I missed, and I would love to go back and find all that stuff, especially if it's silly and especially if there's alcohol involved. This is just a real dumb, fun, good time. As long as you don't think too hard about it, just enjoy yourself. It's goofy. Nicolas Cage is just such a silly little goose.
There's a drinking game in there somewhere.
Oh, there has to be. Take a drink every time there's a slow-mo shot. Corey, would you watch this movie again?
Absolutely. I think I'm in the same boat as Paul with this one. I'd have to give it a few years before I go back and revisit this. It's an absolute wild time. I said it before, I'll say it again. Another perfect example that the 90s was a lawless wasteland. I can't even think of another film that properly has the same spirit as this one, or even remotely the same plot, where someone literally is using the same face as somebody else in some way, shape, or form to infiltrate maybe one of the Mission Impossibles, but they don't devote the entire film around that point. This is knockout performances from Nicolas Cage and John Travolta. The majority of the supporting cast is a ton of fun, except for Jamie. I don't know what else she's done, and I hope it's getting acting lessons, because that was terrible. Jamie, you were bad. I hope you're better. But in any case, yeah, I would watch this again, probably again with alcohol, maybe some of the devil's lettuce, whatever, maybe around. But
kale?
If you're an FBI agent and you're listening to this, yes, kale.
No, I'm just saying kale is the devil's lettuce.
I was thinking okra.
Get with the times, old man.
Listen, I'm a film critic, not a farmer, okay?
Go work on that.
And folks, that's going to wrap up 1997's Face Off. We did it, guys.
Oh, we sure did. We pulled it off.
My gosh, I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you, Paul, for joining us and giving us your insight, you beautiful, beautiful individual.
Terrific having you with us.
A pleasure, guys. Anytime, any Nicolas Cage movie, just invite me right on back.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Got him.
Ouch. Got him.
All right, now that we're done with this film, Steve, what's going on next time?
Well, we got a little patriotic with this one. Let's go full tilt and celebrate our Independence Day as only the cinema can. Oh yes, folks, 1996's classic alien disaster movie. Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman, Armand Denton versus the aliens. Let's go.
Oh my gosh. It's been a long time coming. It's the most patriotic film to some people. We'll find out if it's patriotic to us next time. But until then, folks, I've been Corey.
I was Steve.
Face me next time. Bye.
Bye.
It reminds me of this long, unrelated tangent I wanted to go on for no reason that has no payoff. So the year was 2007. John Travolta just kind of stole a kid. Oh, the weight of the world is on that man's shoulders. It's extreme! I'm not going to expect a full turkey dinner to come out of this piñata.